So welcome back guys to another video, and if you follow me outside the realms of YouTube, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you guys might notice that yes, I love talking about video games, but I'm also a musician. And music, ironically, has been a huge important part of my life just as much as video games. I actually started those two hobbies at the same time. When I got my NES in '91, I also got a small Casio keyboard. And I, immediately connected the two together and I fell in love with video game music. As a matter of fact, that was something I dreamt about doing when I grew up. Everyone wanted to be doctors, everyone wanted to be lawyers and astronauts. I wanted to write the next, Street Fighter theme. So today I wanted to talk about some of my favorite video game tracks that inspired me as a musician. And a little treat, some of the tracks I'm going to be talking about, I'm actually going to be playing those songs, literally doing covers, showing small gameplay montages. So sit back guys, let's talk about it. So the first game I want to talk about is a game that's had a huge important impact in my life. And that is Dragon Warrior, aka Dragon Quest. I made a whole video talking about my love of being introduced to Dragon Warrior. It was my introduction to JRPGs and role-playing games, but most importantly, at the time I was into like Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards and Knights, and it was Dragon Warrior that made me realize what kind of music would fit with the fantasy genre, at a very young age, and it made me fall in love with not just the fantasy genre, but also fall in love with classical music, medieval style music, Baroque, that sort of thing really made an impact on me. And the track that I absolutely love when it comes to Dragon Warrior is the theme that you're inside the castle, you're inside the kingdom, and the king's telling you about saving his daughter from the Dragon Lord. And it's like a whimsical, very fancy kind of song, but at the same time, it's got that sense of adventure. It's got that sense of determination. Now, I don't think I could be talking about video game music without mentioning my two favorite series of all time, Mega Man and Castlevania. And do I really need to go into depth about how great the music is of these games? Chances are, if you've watched YouTube when it comes to retro gaming, or if you've had a retro gaming channel, there's times that I'm pretty sure you've used music from Mega Man or Castlevania. And there's a reason for that. The music is freaking awesome. And, I can go all day talking about my favorite tracks from Mega Man and Castlevania, but the ones that really stick out is Mega Man X Storm Eagle. When I started learning how to play bass, I didn't know about, slap bass, but when I heard Storm Eagle, I'm like, why is the bass sounding like that? And I learned about slap bass. I learned about the greats like Larry Graham and Victor Wooten, and it sounds so weird how much it branched out, and I learned about a whole new technique of playing bass by just listening to some beeps and boops in Mega Man. The Storm Eagle is definitely one of my favorite tracks of all time. Also, when it comes to Castlevania, a track that I feel like is super underrated. Everyone talks about Bloody Tears or Vampire Killer, but Wicked Child is such a good song. When you get to that, little part where it just starts, the bass is starting to drive and the melody starts, going up and down with the octaves. Oh my gosh, it still gives me goosebumps. Nobuo Uematsu is a name I absolutely treasure. He is a composer that I hold very dear to my heart, the composer for most of Final Fantasy. And you know, what's so special about his scores is the fact that, you know, unlike Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, where everything sounds kind of classical and whimsical and baroque, like I was mentioning earlier, Final Fantasy was constantly evolving. Every Final Fantasy has its own imprint, and he's done that with the music, even with the genres. I mean, he's somehow taken this fantasy world that you would think would be very, you know, whimsical and classical, but would add, you know, New Swing Jack, add trance, add jazz, you know, funk. I mean, the screaming organs that you would hear from Deep Purple. There's just so much that he's done with music that I absolutely admire, and I really take as a huge inspiration as a musician, that listen outside of the genre you're playing. You know, if you're in a rock band, you don't have to just listen to rock music. As a matter of fact, don't just listen to rock music. Listen to something other than rock music, and take those things and take those concepts and put it into your own sound. That is something I've learned very much from him. And the song that I really wanted to show off, because I mean, I could talk about Final Fantasy music for days, is the Final Fantasy IV battle theme. And you know, as a bass player, I had to mention this just because of that cameo in Scott Pilgrim, the movie, where he's at band practice and he's like, hey guys, I learned the battle theme to Final Fantasy, and starts playing it. I was that guy at band practice. I was that guy that was playing video game music in a horror punk band, you know? So I had to show it off. It's still one of my favorite songs, and as a bass player, it's just, man, it thumps. Speaking of composers, a composer I absolutely admire, that I feel like is a huge mentor and inspiration when it comes to being a musician, is Yuzo Koshiro. I absolutely love a lot of his songs that he's written for various video games. I mean, you listen to Revenge of Shinobi, or Sonic the Hedgehog on the Game Gear, or Eye of the Beholder, or, man, there's just so much that he's done. And the songs that I really want to tackle is, you know, Streets of Rage and Ys Books 1 and 2. Something I definitely want to talk about is the Genesis sound chip. It's the most rock and roll sound chip I've ever heard when it comes to video game music, because it is gritty. It's not a pretty sounding sound chip. Sure, when you talk about the 16-bit wars with the SNES and the Sega Genesis, the SNES had a much better sound chip with its booming reverb and its emulation of, you know, orchestrated scores, where the Sega Genesis was just nasty. It was almost like the punk rock of video game music. I really love it, and you really hear that with Streets of Rage. You hear this young composer taking the tools that what he had and made this booming electronic house style music that just keeps you pumping, that keeps you going, and keeps making you want to punch the snot out of punks. That, my friends, is good video game composing. And also with Ys Books 1 and 2, I remember before I even played Ys, when I was introduced to Ys from the Happy Console Gamer, like many folks that are watching, that was how I found out about the game. I went and listened to the music first. And Adol's theme, oh my gosh, it's still one of my favorite themes, and I love playing it on the piano. But anyway guys, those are some of my favorite video game tracks, and I could go on for days talking about video game music. It has a very special place in my heart, and You know, what are some video game music tracks that you love? Matter of fact, leave a link below. Show me some of your favorite musical scores from various video games. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and opinions on it. And also, I'm going to be making a playlist of all the music you've heard today and more, including original scores from myself. It's something I've been debating since I started YouTube, being like, man, do I want to start putting my music on YouTube? And after 8 years, yes, I'm going to start putting some of my music. So I'm going to have a whole playlist for that. If you guys love video game music as much as I do, be sure to check that out. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, but also hit the bell so you're notified on all future videos coming out on this channel. Anyway, guys, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and as always, happy gaming.